Hello and welcome back to the sideboard here at Star City Games Worcester. My name is Ruben Bressler and I am joined by Jared Boettcher. It's Jared Boettcher here. I always make fun of his last name. How you doing?
5-0.
5-0, that's a good start. Not quite there yet, but it's a good place to be.
3 more.
Yeah, exactly. And you have brought Esper Control to the table. Now, when I was looking at this format this morning, I decided that there were three main level 0, week 1 decks. There was mono red, green white, and Esper Control. And there's been way more Esper Control than I thought there would be here. Your deck is a little bit different than the traditional version trying to run Etherling. You actually have no creatures in the main deck. So tell me a little bit about your build of Esper.
Well, analyzing the format, there's a lot of just powerful creatures, and Ashiok is just insane because none of the creatures can kill her the turn she comes into play and pluses. So after that, she can just put any creature you want into play or just mill out your opponent. It's like a drown yard without having to commit mana.
Right. Ashiok Nightmare Weaver was a card that a lot of people looked at originally and were like, that doesn't protect itself. I don't think I like it very much. But I remember the days of Jace Beleren, where that would immediately go up to 5 as a 3-mana Planeswalker, and that's often good enough to protect itself, especially when you play things like Thoughtseize or Doomblade or other 1 and 2 mana spells to protect, not to mention Wrath of God following up. So Ashiok definitely a lot stronger than I think a lot of people reckoned early in the format. The other Planeswalker that you have from the new set is Elspeth, Champion of the Sun. Tell me about how Elspeth's been today.
I think she's probably just better than all the other creatures because she just comes in, puts 3 guys into play, or she can come in and act as like a pseudo Wrath effect for any of the creatures that got through before. She just does it all also. And then when she ultimates, it's just game over.
Sure, being able to take care of any number of the problem creatures from Gorkland Rampagers that are in play to even Stormbreath Dragons that are in play, which are oftentimes trouble for this deck. So the main reason why people are playing Esper Control is, well, one of the reasons is because true control hasn't been a viable archetype for the last year and a half, 2 years. Decks like Delver and Blue, White, Red Flash have been the control decks. And people really wanted to get back to that grind them out control style deck, and this definitely does this with how many Planeswalkers total?
9 Planeswalkers.
9 Planeswalkers with Jace, Architect of Thought, Elspeth, and Ashiok all combined to be the main win conditions, and then just a slew of removal and some card draw, Sphinx's Revelation obviously being the all-star there. Another thing that's sort of under the radar about this deck that I think a lot of people might have missed is that you get 2 Scrylands from the most recent set, Theros. Scrylands really helping this deck out, right?
Yeah, sometimes they're weird turn 1 because if you're on the play, you're just in the dark and don't know whether you want to push a Syncopate or if you want to keep a Doomblade. You just don't know what you need. But like late game, when you're pushing that land that you don't need anymore, they're just insane.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to scry extra lands to the bottom or extra, if you need more lands, extra spells to the bottom, definitely very important. And you have a lot of counter magic in the main deck as well. Early in a format, counter magic being very important. You have Syncopate and Dissolve.
Yep.
So Scry is really helping you out. How many lands are you running?
26.
26, which is still pretty high, but not nearly as high as you used to have to run because you just had to fight through mana pockets. But now with so much Scry in the deck, you're able to fight through those. The sideboard is a little bit more interesting to me. The only creature in the 75 is multiple format all-star, Yoked Ox. Yoked Ox is this format's, it's the color-shifted Kraken Hatchling. For mono red, mostly?
Mostly mono red. It's good against some red-green decks, depending on their build. Again, some green-white decks, depending on their build. It's just so that I can get to the late game, because if I can't get to the late game, I can't win.
There's a lot of sideboard cards from the new set in the sideboard here. One card that I think is might be the sideboard card of the tournament, because it's good against Esper, because it's able to deal with things like Detention Sphere and Elspeth. It's good against the green-white deck because so many of the creatures are white. And it's even good against the mono-red deck because Boros Reckoner is a magic card. Is Glare of Heresy. How has this card been for you today?
I want to complain that it's not an instant, but it's just insane as a sorcery.
Sure. Yeah, it's not Celestial Purge, as I was talking about with Anthony Lowry earlier, but it's still very good being able to take out some of the biggest heavy hitters in the format. You also have Thoughtseize in the sideboard.
Yep.
What's that mainly for? Is that for other control matchups?
It's for any control, mirror, or matchup, and it's also for the mid-range decks. And depending on the red-green build, I might bring it in against them, because I can't deal with an early Domri on it sometimes. So if I can turn 1 Thoughtseize and take their Domri and just slow them down, I'm just way ahead.
Yeah, it's also able to steal Stormbreath Dragons at awkward points in the game, punching holes in the opponent's game plan. The last sideboard card I want to talk about is Last Breath. which is not something that I have seen on anyone's radar, really. What is it? So it's able to exile target creature with power 2 or less. Now, when I think exile a creature power 2 or less, I think Voice of Resurgence. Is that the main reason it's in here?
Well, the 2 slots dedicated to Last Breath used to be Pithing Needle because I was scared of Domri and just. But every time I wanted Pithing Needle, I didn't feel like any card I could board out was actually worth a Pithing Needle.
Sure.
So then, to make my mono-red matchup, my green-white matchup, just make those aggro decks more susceptible to my deck, I just figured Last Breath is just a better overall replacement.
Now, another thing, you mentioned Pithing Needle, something that Esper used to be really weak to in the main deck was Planeswalkers.
Yep.
Luckily and happily, Esper you don't have to splash red anymore. You now have Hero's Downfall. So this is one of the most hyped cards of the set, and I wanted to save it for last just so that we could talk about it for a second because you're running so many Planeswalkers. The mono-red deck is running Chandra's, the green-red deck is running Elspeth or Xenagos. All of the decks are running a lot of Planeswalkers. Hero's Downfall really being a key card to be able to run this deck.
Yeah, it fits really well in Esper because it's like a Doomblade or a Detention Sphere at instant speed that just gets rid of it, so you don't even have to worry about it maybe coming back.
Yeah.
It lets me play at a Drago pace. It just lets me do everything. I'm really happy about this card.
Yeah, Hero's Downfall definitely one of the most important things that brings everything together for the Esper control deck because you have Supreme Verdict, you have lots of ways to answer creature permanents, but not so much Planeswalkers.
Right.
And now you actually have a monocolored instant speed way to deal with problem permanents like Planeswalker. Well, Jared, thank you so much for joining me.
I mentioned one more thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I haven't done it yet in this tournament, but in testing, I've had Ashiok's, I've plussed and hit Burning Tree Emissaries, and then I've played turn 4 Elspeths.
Okay.
So that defends Ashiok and Elspeth just even more.
Fair
it's
enough.
Just not a fair
So you can Ashiok
duo.
plus and see a Burning Tree Emissary. Yep. Then the next turn play your 4th land.
Yep, -2.
-2, get
Play
the Burning
Elspeth.
Tree Emissary, play Elspeth on turn 4. Mana acceleration in the Esper deck. Well, Jared Boettcher, thank you so much for joining me. Jared Boettcher, I'm Ruben Breslau here at Star City Games Worcester.